I'm embarrassed to say a lot of people have had bad experiences here because somehow they showed up, they didn't get into our teaching pipeline. They got in rough terrain, and odds are they got turned off from the sport altogether. So we want to do a lot to turn people on. And there are people out there that think there shouldn't be beginners at A-Basin, and we think there should be.
Welcome to the storm. I'm your host, Stuart Winchester, revisiting a favorite today as we journey back to the top of the continent for another round with the longtime leader of Arapahoe Basin. We'll get right to Al. First, I want to thank you for being here. The storm, as many of you know, is my full-time job. My mission is to deliver the best ski newsletter in the world. And there are a whole bunch of ways that you can support this mission of independent ski journalism. First, follow me in all the places. X, Instagram, YouTube, where you can now watch the Storm Skiing Podcast at Storm Ski Journal. Second, if you've been around for a while, you're already a devoted member of Storm Nation. You can rep the brand by picking up some merch at the Storm Store at stormskiing.myshopify.com. And of course, the very best way to support the Storm's mission of independent ski journalism is to visit stormskiing.com and upgrade to the paid tier of the Storm Skiing Journal and Podcast, which will get you access to 100% of the Storm's written content, past, present, and future. All right, before we get to the interview with Al, I want to get ahead of something here. After listening to this, you are probably going to want to slide Arapahoe Basin into your 2025 to 26 ski schedule. And you should. For vibe, lifts, terrain, the legend is as good as anything in the country. But there's one thing they don't have, and that's on-site lodging. Probably a good thing because the base area is at almost 11,000 feet. And I don't know about you, but I have trouble sleeping above about 9. So that's where you can tap in the AC Marriott in Frisco. That's where I stayed when I was skiing A-Basin in May, and it was perfect. The AC Marriott is seated directly off Interstate 70, and I was parking lot to parking lot in about 20 minutes on easy roads. The AC Frisco is set up with a breakfast buffet to get you fueled up for the ski day, a restaurant and lounge that saves you the hassle of going out after a long ski day, an outdoor whirlpool that helps you relax after that high altitude, high intensity Summit County skiing, and fully renovated rooms for an awesome night's sleep. If you do want to go out, downtown Frisco is just a couple minutes down the road, and if you want to mix it up, hit some ski areas beyond A-Basin, Copper Mountain is just 9 minutes down the road from the AC Marriott Frisco. Keystone is 15 minutes right before you hit A-Basin. Breck is 17 minutes, no interstate. And Vail Mountain is about a half hour away, Beaver Creek a little bit past that. The rates are incredibly reasonable considering all that mountain proximity and a lot cheaper than staying slopeside. So check out the AC Marriott in Frisco, Colorado. Book rooms directly on all the major travel sites or at Marriott.com. I'm lucky to have a lot of longtime partners as well, and one of the most consistent has been Aspenware. Can you imagine a future where 99% of your mountain products are booked online? Well, Aspenware can help you do that. Aspenware is the leading e-commerce solution purpose-built for the ski industry. They create customized e-commerce platforms that ensure resort guests spend more time doing what they love and less time standing in lines. Utilizing the team's extensive industry experience, Aspenware strives to make the resort booking process seamless with a mobile-friendly, simplified sales process that anticipates the needs of customers at every part of their journey. Based in Denver, Colorado, Aspenware stands apart as an innovator. They understand the value of software and technology and what it brings to a mountain resort, and they strive to create solutions so good they seem invisible. Visit aspenware.com to learn more. One final note before we start the conversation with Al. We recorded this podcast before the mountain updated Ikon Base Pass access for the 2025 to 26 ski season. The Ikon Pass still gets you full no blackouts access, and the Ikon Base Pass still gets you 5 days with no blackouts, but there's a bonus for Base Pass holders. From opening day, whenever that is, and it's probably soon, through December 19th, 2025, you will have unlimited access, no blackouts to Arapahoe Basin on your Ikon Base Pass. Starting December 20th until closing day in 2026, again, whenever that is, typically June or later, you will have your 5 Ikon Base Pass days, no blackouts, and however many days you use before December 19th and until December 19th, they will not count against that 5-day total. So, awesome little concession from Ikon Base and A-Basin. Enjoy that if you are an Ikon Base Pass holder. All right, let's get into episode 213 of the Storm Skiing Podcast. Alan Henceroth, President and Chief Operating Officer of Arapahoe Basin, Colorado. My guest today is Resort President and Chief Operating Officer of Arapahoe Basin, Colorado. A-Basin covers more than 1,400 acres served by Colorado's most modern lift fleet, with 6 chairs, all built since 2007. The resort's 10,780-foot base area is the 3rd highest of any North American ski resort, behind only neighboring Loveland and Monarch Mountain. A-Basin often opens in October and stays open as late as August, delivering skiers one of the longest ski seasons in the nation. A-Basin is also the newest ski resort to join Alterra Mountain Company, which operates 18 additional ski areas in the United States and Canada and owns the multi-resort Ikon Pass. He has worked at these ski areas since 1988. He is a very good friend of the Storm, making his 2nd appearance on the Storm Skiing Podcast. Alan Henceroth is my guest. How is life at the top of the world today, Al?
You know, it's been a good year for us. We've had very good steady snow since December. You know, each month has been good. We haven't had an extended dry period in there anywhere. Just about time it needs to snow, it snows. So we've had great skiing all along.
So Al, I was out at A-Basin this spring. I gotta say that the folks at A-Basin were representing, because when I was there, it was dumping. Great conditions, but everyone was still, music was going, the parties, the shots. So let's talk about the beach here for a minute, Al, because there's not much up at A-Basin, but people have sort of made their own après.
Yeah, in our early riser lot, which is the main lot, the first one that people get to, the beach is the area where the parking lot abuts right against the snow. And there's a long history and tradition of some really high quality tailgating there. And we reserve about 10 or 12 sites for people. And there is always a scene going on down there, especially in the spring.
I looked pretty fun. I wanted to dip in and join them, but I had skiing to do so. So that's an awesome tradition at A-Basin. You know, I always knew that you stayed open late, Al, and A-Basin is well known for that. What I was surprised by was how much you keep open. And I understand the footprint does shrink eventually, but when I was there, May 6th and 7th, all the lifts were still spinning. Now I had great conditions, you know, and I know that helps, but Copper, Winter Park, Breck, all nearby, they only had a small footprint open. So I ended up just going to A-Basin both days because that's where the most skiing was. Talk about that operational philosophy and why it's important to you to keep the full experience available for as long as you can.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, the nature of our place. So as you mentioned, a very high elevation, especially the front side, the original chunk of A-Basin really faces straight north. So conditions stay good for a long time. And we have some of our very best days through April and into May. And the skiing stays really good until that time. I know the days you were here, you had exceptionally good conditions. We did close three lifts that
Hmm.
that following Sunday after you were here, and then
Hmm.
we closed a fourth lift this past Sunday yesterday. But as long as it's good, people pretty much come
Yeah.
and they have a great time, and we like to stretch it out.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny that not only did I have good conditions, they were probably the best conditions I had this season. And I got 54 days in and I was all over. And one of the hazards of my job is that because I travel, I have to book it ahead of time, right? Because I'm on the East Coast and I'm always going out west. So sometimes I hit it, usually I don't. And I just ended up getting, I don't know if it was 8 inches a foot, whatever it was, but we had awesome, awesome conditions when I was there. So I'll give you credit anyway, but a lot
Yeah.
of it's luck and timing, right?
Well, I mean, and on average, we get about 4 feet of snow in April and sometimes 3 feet of snow in May. So
Wow.
it's not that abnormal what you
Yeah.
experience.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could have come and experienced just bluebird days too. So
Hmm.
those aren't bad either.
No, nothing wrong with that. And I got one of those in at Loveland the
Yeah.
next day. So Al, let's move into the headline here. In November, Arapahoe Basin officially joined Alterra Mountain Company. Al, why did you sell your ski area to Alterra?
Good, great question. Yeah, A-Basin's been owned by a company, Dundee, and then it became Dream for
Hmm.
for 27 years. Um, and the leader of that company the whole time is a guy named Michael Cooper. And I think they have just done an incredible job with A-Basin, and they've made an extraordinary amount of investments in the place. And their primary business is real
Hmm.
estate across Canada, in the US, and in Europe. And we are really an anomaly in their whole portfolio. And they let us be our own brand and run things our own way because we didn't really fit in the other stuff anyhow.
Hmm.
And I think Michael's a very smart guy. He realized that there's really an opportunity for A-Basin to flourish and to do well and grow and develop. And as you know, it's such a wonderful and beautiful place. But 27 years is a long time for a big company to own a
Hmm.
place, and I think for a variety of reasons that really had more to do with Dream. But it had gotten to be time, and I think it made sense for Michael to sell. And we had been partnering with Alterra for a few years now, and we really liked Alterra. I knew that Michael was going to sell someday. I thought he was going to wait a few more years, but
Hmm.
the time was right. So he got together with the Alterra folks, and they made a deal.
So you move on to Alterra, and I make that joke of your ski area because your Shannon, your comms person, was telling me that when you made that announcement, a disproportionately high number of people were stunned to realize that you were not the owner of A-Base, and you're so synonymous with it with your Al's blog and
Yeah,
your long tenure there.
yeah,
If you look at Alterra's portfolio, you have places like Deer Valley, Mammoth, Palisades Tahoe, Steamboat, Schweitzer, ski resorts, right? You go there, you get a slopeside condo, you set up shop for the week. Can't do that at A-Basin. There's really nothing up there. I think that's because of the altitude, but you can tell me, clarify that for us. But what how does Arapahoe Basin fit into Alterra's portfolio? Why does it make sense alongside all of these ski resorts that offer kind of a more complete experience for maybe the family?
yeah. There's probably a few layers to that question. Alterra also has places like Solitude and Crystal, which do have some lodging, but not gigantic lodging
Mm-hmm.
properties, and still very much from their respective cities. Salt Lake City and Seattle. I think those might be the resorts we're most similar to business-wise in the
Yeah.
organization. But you've seen and experienced what a great place is for A-Basin to ski. And where we fit in Colorado, Colorado's the busiest ski state, the Front
Mm-hmm.
Range. is the busiest part of the ski state. We have a role in that market, in that environment, in that culture. And I think they recognized how nicely we'd fit in with all the other resorts. One thing that's interesting is, I think conventional wisdom says A-Basin is a locals area, maybe a locals front range area. It very much is, but you'd be surprised how many people from out of state ski here too.
Mm-hmm.
We are in many ways a destination, just not in the conventional sense of lodging. People are staying elsewhere. Just Saturday, I was in the Sixth Alley, and which is our bar and grill, and I met this couple. They're from Houston, and they're A-Basin pass holders, and
Really?
this is where they ski, and they
Mm-hmm.
come here several times a year. And there's a lot of people like that out there. So we're much more of a destination than most people realize.
Al, do you have insight into to what extent folks are using Ikon as a sampler pack and coming out, setting up shop, maybe in Frisco or Dillon, and skiing Copper and Eldora and Winter Park and A-Basin and doing a day or two at each?
That is one I would like to get more insight in. The old thought was people would set up camp in Summit County and A-Basin would try to get a day from them. I don't think it's really like that anymore. I think the people that do come in from out of state might be coming here. Obviously Copper is on the Ikon Pass also. There's certainly a connection between A-Basin and Copper and those visitors there. But there's a lot of people that are coming in. It might be the opposite now. They might be skiing a few days at A-Basin, staying on our side of the county and going over to Copper for a day.
Right. All right, Al. So new management, you've been there, as I mentioned in the intro, since 1988. You've seen Ralston Purina, you saw Dream, you saw Vail almost own the place, or maybe they did for a minute and had to sell it. It's a little lost in the legalese there, but I don't know how much of a say you had in it. And I'm sure it was some, but from your perch, what told you that Alterra would be a good owner when the Dream folks said, okay, we're ready to sell, they're ready to buy? Al, what do you think?
Yeah, good question. And obviously the decision to sell was not mine, but Michael has always been, great at listening. I think that's been his greatest strength through all the years. And it was really important for him that it get in the right hands. And, over the years, a lot of people have been interested in A-Basin. Probably no surprise there. But, we really liked the way Alterra was doing things. We liked the collection of the resorts. We liked the partnership that they'd made beyond just their own resorts with the Ikon Pass. And, we liked the point that they're letting the resorts retain their own identity. I just thought they were the ones of all the companies out there. I was hoping it was going to be Alterra, and it was.
Was there anything in particular, Al? Was there a moment maybe since you joined Ikon Pass for, I believe, the 2019 to 20 ski season? Was there any particular incident that convinced you that Alterra long term would be a good steward of A-Basin? Any qualities of the company?
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if there's one exact point. It's more just an accumulation of points as and I knew most of the other resort presidents already before we were purchased, and just talking to them and what they thought of their companies and just how the collection fit in with everybody else. And I still think skiing is at the core of what they're doing. It's at the core of what we do. And I just kind of knew all along it would fit.
Yeah. So working with the Alterra folks and having that relationship over the years, sounds like you got to a good place. So you knew that. You've been in those rooms, right? And you've had the conversations, and you also had the conversations with Epic and Vail, so you knew the contrast. The locals don't have that insight, right? They're not in the room with you. The Local reaction from my perch, again, I'm in New York, so this is just what I'm seeing and hearing from various sources online and off, was a sort of reflexive anger or concern that A-Basin was selling out, A-Basin was going corporate, A-Basin was going to change. That's what I was seeing. What was your perception of local reaction, and how has that evolved in the past year and a half or so since you made that announcement back in, I think, February of 24?
Right. Well, I think your observations are spot on. I think we've had such a good thing going here for a long time. And, frankly, when Ralston and Ralcor and the various iterations of that were the owner, we had a really good thing going then. And, under Dream, we've had a great thing going. Um, and we made a really big move back when we left the Epic Pass to kind of manage crowds. And I think our customers were really happy the way it's been going around here the last 5 or 6 years. So I think it's fair that there was anxiety. And whenever you change things, people get concerned. And I expected that. So that did not catch me off guard. Every time we do something big, and this was one of the biggest things we've done, but when we've added terrain or added Zoom or added the beavers or added snowmaking or added whatever, there's we are criticized at those times. And that's when people say I've heard the corporate sellout so many times over my career. And what we've been able to do, and what I think we're going to be able to do under Alterra is keep our own identity. It's pretty amazing to me that through those Ralston and Dream years, people didn't recognize we were owned by a big corporation. So we've been able to navigate that for the past, going back to 1978, however long ago that was. And we're going to be able to continue to do it now. So I'm not worried that we're going to still keep running a great place, but I think we're going to have to show people. And we announced the change with the Ikon Pass, and we're going to have to show people again. And the two operational things that I am most excited about are going to unrestricted on the Ikon Pass, and the second one is the parking reservations that we implemented this year, which also, if you read, you might think, if you read the right social media posts or the wrong social media posts, depending on how you look at it, that was a disaster, but that's been, extraordinarily successful. We really didn't have a problem day the entire season, and we had some really good days. So, I think we have a couple challenges at A-Basin, and a lot of resorts have these same challenges. They're just maybe a little more profound here, but we have the potential to have these extraordinary, crazy peak days, and we got to deal with them. And then we have times where the business is a little too soft. And, for us in particular, with the way we're doing things now, the fall season is a little too soft. So I am extraordinarily excited with these two changes. I think the parking reservations, more than anything we've tried to manage crowds, and we've done a lot of things that have affected crowd management, a lot of things successfully too, but this one really nails it more precisely than anything else we ever tried. So I feel like we've done through the reservations, and we stole the idea from other areas. A few other areas have been doing it, and we watched them and we're like, wow, it's working there. But we've done more to control those peak days than anything else we've tried. And now by unrestricting the full Ikon Pass, we can start filling in those soft spots a little bit better. And the one thing that happens with our existing Ikon Pass holders is they're restricted to either 5 or 7 days. And most people think they're going to ski more than they really do, and they don't want to burn their days early because, we're famous for our mid and especially our late season skiing. So
Mm-hmm.
they're like, I'm going to save all 7 of my days for the end. Um, the reality is they're probably going to come here 3 or 4 days, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't come maybe once in December or January because they didn't want to burn a day. So
Mm-hmm.
those two things in this new era with Alterra are the items I am most excited about for us to really get to the sweet spot of running this place.
So let's focus on Ikon Pass first. I'd imagine there was a lot of thought that went into Ikon Pass access, and a lot of your communications around leaving the Epic Pass was that the only way that skiers would be able to get unlimited Arapahoe Basin was by buying the Arapahoe Basin single mountain pass. So when Alterra purchased you, Alterra is a little different than Vail. They don't automatically put all their mountains unlimited on Ikon as Vail does with Epic. Deer Valley, for example, still just 7 days on Ikon. It's not even on the Ikon base. So before, as you mentioned, A-Basin was 7 days, no blackouts on full Ikon, 5 days, no blackouts on Ikon base. So you jump up to unlimited on Ikon, and setting this up for the listeners, obviously.
Yeah.
And 5 days, still no blackouts. You're one of the few that's like that. So that's a special note I think most people are not aware of. 5 days without holiday blackouts on Ikon base. Take us through the thought process here, Al, of deciding that was the appropriate level, and why you're not concerned that is going to add too many people to A-Basin.
That's a great question. And Stuart, I get that 10 or 20 times a day as I walk around the ski area. So, and a lot. So, and a lot to work through there. So, half a dozen years ago when we were still Dream working with Alterra, we spent a ton of time getting to what we did. In fact, I think we originally were leaning towards being unrestricted back then, but we just decided, no, that would be too much. And we originally had blackout days, but for us, the blackout days, it restricted too much. So, what happened was President's Weekend and MLK Weekend turned into the quietest weekends of the year when we should be doing some good business. So that's why we got rid of the blackout days. But this time around, we spent a ridiculous amount of time talking about it, and we've really been talking about it. When we were Dream, we've been talking about it with Alterra too, and trying to figure out a way to make it work. Because, I think the last time you and I talked was 3 years ago. That was towards the end of COVID, and we were, facing the new reality, which was we were managing our weekends really well. We were really happy with them. And we needed to fix those soft periods. So we've been trying to figure out ways to change the access anyway. And we never quite did it on the partner level. But this time around, you can imagine we talked about every alternative we could think of, from unrestricted everything to maybe, some of the passes are just unrestricted, or maybe they're just restricted for certain times of the year. And some of those ideas and concepts got really confusing and complicated. And, I can't say I know it's going to work exactly perfectly, but I thought this was our next best move to let's restrict the full Ikon, and see if we can zero in on those ideal numbers. Keeping in mind the whole time we have parking reservations.
Yeah.
So the amount of people that can show up here with the parking reservations is really clearly limited. And as I said earlier in the show, that has done more to precisely control how busy we are, especially how busy the highway is and the parking is. Because when that goes south, it's no fun for anybody. And we never went there this year, and I don't think we will next year either, because we've got this incredible tool.
So the parking does obviously plays this important role. I think another really key factor, Al, that I don't think a lot of folks are considering is just the incredible price difference. If you go back to the Epic Pass days, the final year you were on the Epic Pass for the 2018 to 19 ski season, Vail sold a Keystone A-Basin holiday blackouts, but otherwise unlimited pass for $349. Ikon this year started at $1,329. Now it's $1,429. How much does that price have to do with it? And I'd imagine you have a lot of insight into how many Ikon passes full versus base there are in Colorado, which of course you're not going to tell me, but the price anyone can see. How much does that factor into it?
That's a huge part of it. I mean, the numbers of Ikon people versus Epic people are it's a really big difference. I can say that. And that's why I have the confidence to embrace, the unrestricting of the Ikon Pass.
You still did keep your Arapahoe Basin season pass. Started at $659. It's $679 now as we speak on, again, May 19th. This is not unusual. More Alterra ski areas have their own season pass than don't, but a lot like Steamboat or Palisades will use that. Your only way to get unlimited is Ikon Pass.
Right.
I'd imagine that was part of the conversation. Will we make Ikon Base our unlimited? Why was it important to you, Al, to keep this product for the people who ski A-Basin, only A-Basin? This is their home. This is where they want to be.
Yeah. That it was really important. So to get that part out there, it was really important. And there are people that just want to ski here. And that's awesome. Or maybe they ski here and we still have a couple partnerships with Monarch and Silverton. They people really take advantage of those. So, but this is where they really want to ski. And there's another point of, maybe the price point for the Ikon Base or the full Ikon is more than they want to spend. So there's still a real opportunity for us to have a pass. And what is really cool now though is by being unrestricted on the Ikon Pass, I think that's the greatest pass ever made. You can ski A-Basin all you want, and then you can go all these other incredible resorts. And when I go on ski holidays, which I do a few times each winter with my wife, we go to Ikon resorts.
Yeah.
And so between the two of them, it's really important. And as I've talked to the people that are skiing here, some of them are psyched by the idea that they can upgrade. And we already know a fair number of people have moved up from the A-Basin Pass to the Ikon Pass. And others are, they were just so adamant with me, you're going to keep the A-Basin Pass, right? And that, I don't think we ever even really considered seriously getting rid of it. It was going to be part of the deal all the time.
So one of the cool things you mentioned, you have reciprocal deals with Monarch and with Silverton. One kind of cool thing, and this is when I start to get really in the weeds and really look at these things, is that Alterra has so far seemed to let its acquired resorts keep those. Schweitzer, for example, which Alterra bought in 2023, still has reciprocal deals with Whitefish and Grand Targhee and a bunch of other resorts, but those two in particular, they're not on Ikon. They have no relationship with Alterra. Now, you don't get them with the Ikon Pass, but if you buy a Schweitzer Mountain Season Pass, you get them. When you look at those relationships with Monarch and with Silverton, which go back, that means they can come to A-Basin too. How important are those to you? And do you hope to keep those in place for A-Basin only season pass holders long term?
Yeah, we do plan on keeping them in place. We've always been very choosy about who we partner with. It's really got to fit and be right, because we've got a few other really good ones through the years. We worked with Taos for a long time, worked with Bridgeable for a little while. I hope to keep those in place. We don't have any plans to get rid of them. And if I could have one or two more ideal ones, we might try and do that also. So that's a big deal. And I don't know if there's an Alterra policy across the board about this. I know Tom Chassis pretty well at Schweitzer, and I know I haven't talked to Tom about that specifically, but they're doing their best to keep the identity of Schweitzer what it is, because it's a wonderful place too. And I think I think they want us. I think Alterra wants A-Basin to be what it is, which is not at a static point. We're always
Hmm.
growing and changing and
Yeah.
developing and learning and trying new things, but they want us to stay on that path.
What does it tell you about Alterra that they have allowed their resorts to do that and to sort of craft, because they made these little tweaks to Ikon Pass all the time. They ended up taking Deer Valley off of base. They kind of bounced Crystal's access around, and there's a lot of thought that goes into it. So when you see that as an operator, as someone who is basically married to this place,
Right.
as part of you at this point, what does that tell you about these new owners and the way that they will allow A-Basin to be maintained?
Yeah. Well, I think it says a lot, and it's why was so comfortable, even relieved, when I found out it was going to be Alterra.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they say it publicly, but I think it's true legitimately behind the scenes is they're not the stuff that's going on behind the scenes is how we run accounting. Maybe how are we going to set up the Ikon Pass?
Mm-hmm.
How we run our accounting systems, how we do maybe the Ikon Pass marketing. The resorts do a lot of marketing on their own. But the nuts and bolts of how the ski areas operate, I think that goes on with the people that operate them.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like a handbook, or I haven't seen it yet, but there's not a handbook how to run the Alterra resort. It's let's let these resorts value and cherish this great culture that's been built over the years. And I've been amazed how few things I've been told to do over the last 6 months, you know? I mean, literally, I haven't had a single bit of feedback on operational type stuff. It's how we are going to set up big picture moving forward.
All right, let's give Al a breather as I ask you this question. Does your marketing need a fresh perspective from industry experts? Do you need better storytelling? Does your ski area or outdoor brand need rebranding or advertising? If so, I want to introduce you to my partners at Bonfire Collective. They're a fractional marketing agency that collaborates with ski areas and outdoor brands like yours. So what exactly does that mean to be a, quote, fractional marketing team that collaborates with ski areas and outdoor brands? Well, what it means is that Bonfire can help you rethink your approach in ways that can turbocharge your business. For example, Bonfire Collective took on the marketing at one New Hampshire ski area, and they doubled revenue in just 3 years. And when the Storm Skiing Journal and Podcast was ready to invest in our first ever digital marketing campaign last year, I worked with Bonfire to make that happen. I could not be happier with the results, and I think that you will love working with them too. To get started, you will want to talk to Eric over at Bonfire Collective. Eric was a co-founder of Bluebird Backcountry in Colorado, the first human-powered ski area, and so he knows the ski business. Visit bonfirecollective.com, or I will be happy to make that connection for you. All right, back to Al. You kept your single mountain season pass, keeping a lot of the attributes of your reciprocals and stuff. I still can't believe this is real, and I had to double check it and read the fine print. $259 for your fall pass. I know you mentioned earlier that's a soft period. That's unlimited skiing from opening day, which, as I said, is often in October, through December 25th. I mean, that's more than 60 days of skiing on a good years. I'm wondering here, Al, are you a victim of your own success? Because what inevitably happens, you turn on the guns, Loveland turns on the guns, sometimes Wolf Creek just gets a dump. So you're kind of racing to see who opened first. First day hits and boom, social media, all these lift lines, pictures materialize. But I imagine that's one day. And then everyone's like, okay, wake me up when there's more than one run open or whatever. So talk about this fall pass, because that's like one day at Vail, right? $259, and you can ski all fall at A-Basin.
Yeah.
And why you think that isn't doing more to fill the parking lots? Do people just not know about it, or is there just not that much demand?
That is a great question. Early season is the market's smaller then. Mm-hmm. It's quite a bit smaller. And it's more competitive now than it used to be. There was a period, at different times, different players had been involved, and for a number of
Mhm.
years after we got into it, it was A-Basin and Loveland. But now, Keystone opens early, Breck opens pretty early, Eldora has opened early, Winter Park's opening early. So it's a more competitive time than it
Mhm.
used to be. Um, but maybe I'm gonna have to get you to do a testimonial for me about how great this pass is, and we'll put a billboard up right outside of Denver with your picture on
Oh, there we go.
it.
All right, I like that. Some joint marketing.
Yeah.
So on the other side of the pass equation, Arapahoe Basin will leave Mountain Collective for the 2025 to 26 ski season. So good still through the end of this season, but then you will not be on that again. Alterra did pull Mammoth, Palisades, Tahoe, and Sugarbush, so the other three resorts that it owns, off Mountain Collective in 2022. So this is not a huge surprise. I've been to a lot of Mountain Collective events. I know the leaders of most of the mountains. I've kind of come to think of it as skiing's most exclusive country club. People seem to really like being part of it, which I think is why it's still around. You seemed like a fan of it. I don't want to speak for you,
Yeah.
but did you advocate to stay on Mountain Collective? And ultimately, why is Arapahoe Basin going to leave that coalition?
Yeah. So when Palisades and Mammoth and Sugarbush left a few years back, I was relatively, new at the Mountain Collective table.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I remember being bummed that they were leaving, but I got it.
Mm-hmm.
There is some obvious conflict there. Um, and I truly hoped that somehow A-Basin would stay on the Mountain Collective.
Right.
I love the pass. Like you said, it's an extraordinary group of resorts and people. When I go to a Mountain Collective meeting, I learned so much just hanging out with that group of resort managers.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, it was really good for me, and I thought it was a really nice niche for us. But I think there's some obvious reasons maybe why we shouldn't be a part of it, and maybe from the other Mountain Collective resorts point of view, they don't might not want an Ikon Pass member in there. Although everyone said they wanted us to stay. But then also from our perspective, to just be part of a conflicting pass, it makes a lot of decisions and choices and planning a lot easier. And I on so many levels, I wish we would have stayed in, but I understand why we didn't, and I actually think it's best in the long run. It was just a great thing to be a part of.
So this is an example of the kind of thing that folks who have already made up their mind that corporate life will ruin A-Basin might point to and see, Alterra made them leave the Mountain Collective. Let's put this in the context of everything and what you said. You've surprised by how little you've been asked to do. What's your response to that? I mean, is there just, we're part of a big company, there's certain things that aren't going to change, or is it more complex than that?
I don't think it's that complex. I mean, I think it's the fact that there is a certain conflict there. And I don't think moving forward as Alterra, we wanted the complexifier of,
Yeah.
oh, we've got this other pass we got to deal with. And which it's interesting already because there's so many, Ikon partners and Mountain Collective partners are some of the same people. It it makes sense to not have that complicating factor. Um, as cool as it was.
Yeah. All right. One more question about Alterra and the acquisition, and then we'll move on to the master plan, which I'm excited to get into. So the U.S. Justice Department, a few months after Alterra announced its intended acquisition, which these closings always take a while, announced that it was looking further into the sale out of potential antitrust concerns, which also there's some history with Vail, which we discussed last time you were on the podcast, and Justice making them sell that resort in 1997. So to what extent, Al, can you tell us what Justice was concerned about? and ultimately how you, Alterra, A-Basin, were able to alleviate their concerns and say, no, we're going to be fine as part of Alterra. This is not going to manipulate the market.
Yeah. So obviously I was really heavily involved in that. Although I didn't have any direct contact with DOJ. That was
Okay.
done through our legal team. And remember, I was wearing the dream hat during that period.
Mm-hmm.
And a very small number of the senior leaders in legal at Dream. So I didn't have direct contact. And I have to tell you, there's some confusion here for me because it really was never clear to me what their concerns were. And I don't know that I know or understand that, but they finally let it go and let the deal go through. Um, but it's a confusing one. That was a very difficult time to work through. It was incredibly confusing for staff, incredibly confusing for our guests, to know what the heck was going on. I think the typical A-Basin follower thought the deal had already happened and we were full steam ahead getting integrated into Alterra, when in fact we weren't even really allowed to talk to them except on some of the most rudimentary things. Um, so unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you there. I don't really know either. It was kind of difficult to work through and, um, tried everybody's patience a fair bit to get through it. I hope DOJ got what they wanted out of it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just unclear what was going on there to me.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out either because across the country, as consolidation has accelerated over the past 15 years or so, you look, for example, at Pennsylvania, which I know Colorado skiers don't take seriously, but that's a major incubator of new skiers, right? And Vail now owns 8 of the 20 whatever public ski areas that certainly account for at least half of that state's skier visits. And they're all kind of concentrated in a little like half moon. Justice didn't even blink, or maybe they just didn't notice. I know Colorado's more high profile. But as I mentioned, in 1997, Vail tried to buy Brett, Keystone, and A-Basin, and Justice said, no, you can't have all three. So they sold A-Basin, and then Dream went and did their thing. Well, what is it about A-Basin? I mean, is it just a coincidence, Al? Like, why does this place keep getting hammered by the feds?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. It's probably a little bit of luck that it's just A-Basin. To be honest,
Yeah.
it's probably a combination of some other things that
Mm-hmm.
The buyers were the biggest players both times. It's probably a reflection of some bigger national politics, just what one DOJ focuses on under one administration versus what another DOJ might focus on under a different administration. So, and then probably on top of that again, just the way the Colorado market is, the Colorado Front Range market, it's there's a lot going on here, and it's the busiest part of the ski business.
Yeah.
And I think that probably has as much to do with it. I think probably just a little bad luck for A-Basin that we got dragged in both times.
All right, let's leave that to the lawyers, Al. Let's talk about the master
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
So Arapahoe Basin is within the White River National Forest, along with 10 other ski areas, and as such, you put out an updated master plan every decade or so. I understand the document is aspirational. This is not saying we are doing this and we are doing it tomorrow. I have a lot of specific questions here, but lay this out for us. Give us your executive overview of Arapahoe Basin's 2025 updated Forest Service master plan.
For one, I think I've listened to just about all your podcasts or close to it, and you've had this conversation with many people, and people all talk about it a little bit differently, but it's not in stone, but it is. I mean, it's a legitimate plan and effort of how we're trying to set up for, and I use the term decade, but it's really not just a number. It's kind of for the next phase. It just turns out it's about a decade for us, looking at the last 4 master plans. So it's a legitimate effort. It's not just a pie in the sky. I mean, everything in there we hope to do. Um, it also is forward thinking in the sense, one of my favorite quotes is Wayne Gretzky, where he said, he never skated to the where the puck was, he skated to where it was going. So we're trying to think about what we need, about 10 years from now. So when you look at some of the items in that master plan, some of the stuff in there we need today. Um, but some of it we're not ready for yet, but we think as things go the next few years, it'll be time to do some of those other pieces. So it's it's a legitimate effort to lay out what we're trying to do. These projects on Forest Service land are approved through the NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act. That's where you do either a EIS or an EA or a CE. But we're trying to look at issues in the master plan, um, so we can do a better job when we enter NEPA. Because we don't want to put out a bad proposal, or we don't want to put out a proposal that's not going to get approved. Because it's really difficult to work through this. It's really expensive to work through this. So it's an effort by us to really fine tune what we're proposing. We want to propose something that's going to get approved because it's a good project and it doesn't have a weak piece or a bad piece or some sort of environmental impact that's not acceptable. So it is a really important part of what we do. And it leads up to that next big step, which is NEPA.
All right, there's a lot of exciting elements of this, Al. I know you've been hammering on the parking, so let's start there. One of the elements of this master plan would be a pulse gondola. So for the listeners, viewers who are not familiar, it's those gondolas that move in little chains. They're together, so you can ride them right now at Snowmass. Steamboat has one, and there's little ones all over the country. So talk about the pulse gondolas, where they would sit and what they would do, and then how this would build on the reservation strategy that you already talked about to maybe finally get A-Basin to the parking future that you aspire to.
As designed now, its upper end is by the upper entrance to the high noon and last chance lots.
Mm-hmm.
And it terminates right at our tunnel, which goes under Highway 6.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of people shuttling around or having a really long walk, they have a shorter walk to the gondola and ride down and get just about really close to the base area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for people that are foot passengers. They're standing, they're not skiing. That's why it's a gondola. And then the pulse gondola specifically, really the way to think of it is it's a fixed grip lift.
Mm-hmm.
And it has cabins in these clusters. And when the cabins get to the terminal, the lift just slows down.
Mm-hmm.
And so most gondolas are detachable gondolas where the cabin actually comes off the line, slows down through the terminal. The lift just slows down and it goes through the terminal. People hop on or hop off,
mm-hmm.
and then it speeds up as it heads down the line.
Mm-hmm.
They're for relatively low capacity applications. So you can't get near as many people on as you do. Most gondolas are probably designed in the 2,000 or 3,000 people per hour range. This is like 500 or less
mm-hmm.
people per hour for something like this. Because it's like a fixed grip lift, it's about half the price of a detachable lift.
Okay.
Also. So, and the capacity we need for moving people in from parking, pretty small
mm-hmm.
as compared to when people are skiing. So that's why we've chosen that lift for that application. When you look at the other parking pieces that we've added, we've carved out a couple of spots to build a couple of pretty small parking lots, but
okay.
Maybe we hope to get 300 or 400 spots out of the 2 lots.
Mm.
And then also we're proposing a pedestrian bridge over the highway
mm-hmm.
at the upper end. It just would enable people to flow through the whole ski area parking so much better. Now when you're in the upper lots, it feels like you're a million miles away. When in fact, you're really close to the Wrangler Trail, or Lower Wrangler anyway. And one of the little parking lots is right next to Wrangler. It's another beachside thing or a slope side thing like the beach. Um, so we think it's all just going to flow so much better. We think it's actually going to be the whole thing combined is going to be transformational. People are going to want to park up there because it's going to be so easy to get on and off the slopes. They can do it directly.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, our parking reservations just control how many cars show up.
Right.
So it's a way to get the best out of our parking and have it be a great asset to us instead of just making me crazy on Saturday mornings.
So thinking ahead to the storytelling aspect of this, because one thing I see a lot is when a ski area builds something, it's not, well, actually, when they build anything, it's always, well, why didn't you build this other thing that I would rather have for my specific situation? A lift sounds expensive, even if it's half the price of a detach. You already have shuttles. I'd imagine you did the cost benefit. Why would this be better than
Yeah,
a shuttle long term?
yeah. I think it's better because it would be a much nicer experience for the guest.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be much nicer for employees, frankly, because shuttling people is kind of hard
Yeah.
around lots. Its downside is it's expensive. So I think we will have to do all these other things really well. That I'm sure we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, but all the other pieces of this plan really well
Mm-hmm.
to justify doing such a nice piece. But we're focused continually on making the experience better and better and better all the time. So I think it's a logical step for us.
So the master plan has two interesting lifts that I want to talk about together. So essentially, it's an out of base gondola that would take you up the mountain to a mid mountain beginner area where you could also take a high speed quad, again, a beginner lift. So talk us through this entire complex, Al, with the gondola. And this is a regular gondola, not a pulse.
Right.
It's in addition to the one we just discussed. And the high speed quad, where those would lift or load, land, how they would interact with each other, and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, sure. So a couple more important lead ups to this. So that master plan that's available to review on our website. There's pages and pages and pages of tables and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things when you look real close and dive into that minutia is, we do have a shortage of indoor space now,
Mm-hmm.
and we only expect that shortage to get the need for more space is only going to grow over the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece that's important, and maybe if you look at Google Earth of A-Basin, you can see this, or just riding Black Mountain Express and looking back, our base area is tiny. One side is the mountain, two sides is Highway 6, wrapping around, and then the other side is our parking lot, which also happens to be an avalanche path run out. So we really don't have any room to grow in the base area unless we just went vertical, making tall buildings, which I don't think anyone's interested in doing. So then another big part of all this is, we don't have a lot of green terrain anyway. And roughly half of our green terrain is really easy, really simple, what I would call light green, which is just ideal for your very first day on skis. The other half of it is dark green terrain, a little bit steeper, maybe not suitable for day one or day two. The easy terrain now, the light green flows into the dark green, so you have to ski the dark green at the bottom.
Right.
And so what we've done here is, of the lower mountain, the upper half of the lower mountain is where this really great light green terrain is. You can see there's a shaded part above that Sawmill Flats Skier Center.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just incredible terrain for teaching. And then below that is where it gets steeper. So the idea is we start from right in the base area
Mm-hmm.
and we build a relatively short gondola up to this place we call Sawmill Flats.
Okay.
And there's some terrain in there that's underutilized right now. It's where that building is drawn. I think figure 11, I believe, out of the master
Mm-hmm.
plan.
Okay.
And we have a skier services center there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have a conveyor used part of the teaching process. And then from there to up above the bottom of Lenawee lift, we put in what's probably a detachable quad.
Mm-hmm.
And we have about a 2,000-foot long trail that's just ideal teaching terrain.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, with that, again, we don't have really room to grow in the base area, and we have a building or two up there that's the skier services center that's going to have restrooms, food and beverage, rental shop, snow sports school, maybe some retail, something like that. But people arrive that are learning how to ski and they just hop on that gondola
Mm-hmm.
and they go up to the Sawmill Flats Skier Services Center. We haven't really picked a name for it, but that's what we're calling it.
Yeah.
And they get totally set up there. They get their rentals, they get their instructor, they may start on the conveyor and then they may ride that lift a few times. But at the end of their day, at the end of their half day lesson, whatever it is, maybe we don't want to put them on that dark green trail to get down. They can ride the gondola down.
So this would give A-Basin a really great beginner step ladder, because you start on the carpets, you go to Molly Hogan, which is just the cutest little lift I've ever seen. You go over to the gondola and you take the Wrangler or whatever you end up calling it, high-speed quad up. Let me just be annoying for a second. Why bother, right? Because A-Basin is an expert's mountain. It's always been an expert's mountain. It's where people go to challenge themselves, to test themselves. It's up there with Snowbird and Palisades, and Jackson is one of these places where if you can ski it, you can ski anywhere. You're surrounded by Loveland, Keystone, Copper, Breck, all have great terrain of all varieties. Is this, like, why bother building this big beginner center? Because it's going to be very expensive for all these lifts. It's kind of trying to be a complete resort, but maybe you don't need to be. Maybe A-Basin is just fine being an expert's resort, and this isn't going to bring in the people. So why is this important to you as the guy who's been there? And I'm not telling you anything you don't know about the mountain, but why do you want to add this beginner element to it?
Yeah, sure. So you're not being annoying asking that question. Others ask it also. And there are people out there that think there shouldn't be beginners at A-Basin. And we think there should be. We think it's a great place to learn how to ski. The heritage here of introducing people to skiing, soon after the ski area opened in 46, Larry Jump hired Willie Scheffler to run the Willie Scheffler Ski School, who's one of the great luminaries in the whole ski world and history in the 40s and 50s and 60s and into the 70s. So a lot of people over the decades have learned how to ski here. There was a window in the Ralston Purina years. We always had a ski school here, but we actively did encourage people to learn how to ski at Keystone, but that's when we were part of Keystone. And we think it's really important that people learn how to ski here. And, skiers have friends that are learning how to ski. Skiers have kids that are learning how to ski. It's a great place for locals and front rangers, families to bring their kids, like all resorts, we've got a great Saturday and Sunday program, where kids come and sign up for multiple days in a row, and mostly they get to stay with their instructor. So we believe teaching people to ski is really important. And I think it's just obvious. You got to keep, bringing young skiers in as old skiers, age out. And we want to welcome everybody too, and we want it to be a place where people feel good. I'm embarrassed to say a lot of people have had bad experiences here because somehow they showed up, they didn't get into our teaching pipeline, they got in rough terrain, and odds are they got turned off from the sport altogether. So we want to do a lot to turn people on. And the reality is we are limited in the acres of green terrain that we have, but these lifts enable us to utilize our really great green terrain in a so much better way.
Yeah.
And maybe the other thing is, well, we don't want to send skiers to Copper and Keystone and Breckenridge.
Fair enough. So beyond the beginners, I think it is pretty easy to get in over your head at A-Basin just because the terrain is so challenging. Is there any part of this, Al, that is an acknowledgement that we are in Ikon Pass Mountain and we're getting a different sort of skier driving to the top of the highway than we used to?
I don't think so, because I mean, we really hatched this idea. I mean, it's been going through my head for probably at least 10 years.
Mm.
We really hatched it and started working on it 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were working on it. We were just really getting rolling right when COVID went down and everything got put on the shelf for a while there. But we had the master plan already written when Alterra bought us, and we did spend time reviewing it. We did a tiny bit of wordsmithing on the plan, but they looked at the plan and said, looks great, keep moving forward. So we did this based on what Dream anticipated our needs to be in the future, and I don't think that's changed. It might be, being part of Ikon might be all the more reason to do it, but the plan existed. Alterra did not change literally a single thing in the plan itself.
So A-Basin's footprint has grown quite a bit. In 2007, you opened Zuma, you opened Beavers in, I think, 21 or somewhere around there. So you've gotten a lot more acreage over the past several years. This plan does not call for additional acreage. However, reading into the MDP, it bumps your design day. And I know that's a sort of a planning term, and you can enlighten us on what that means, and not to take it too literally maybe, but your design day goes from 4,120 guests to 4,840, which is, maybe about a 20% bump. Given your past concerns about crowding and the Epic Pass and how that played out, how are you thinking about adapting your operation to be able to potentially accommodate 730 more people on the same footprint now, given a couple more lifts? But how are you going to do that and keep A-Basin's experience good after all the hard work you've done to make it that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. When you look at that plan and you look at the gondola, the building, the Wrangler lift, and then you look at that upper Wrangler terrain, the Wrangler Trail in general is pretty underutilized. So I think there's room to add more people teaching. But I think between those two lifts, that building and Wrangler, that'll absorb those 700 people. It could absorb more than that, I think, at any given time, the number of people on the lift. And the gondola, we think that, a lot of people will be foot passengers riding up there, but there's going to be a few that are maybe past the light green terrain. They're ready for the dark green terrain. And there's going to be some regular usage of just the gondola too. So I think those 700 people are easily going to be absorbed by those facilities.
All right. One thing that you did to improve the guest experience that we talked about last time that you were on the podcast was the Lenawee Express. And I go back to this all the time, but there was only a 20-year-old lift and you replaced it, which sort of showed Dream's commitment to things. So you put in a 6-pack to replace a triple. It's 3 years later. You've had some time to sit with it. How do you like it? How's Lenawee worked out? How's it changed the mountain?
We love it. It has been everything we ever wanted, and when we put in that triple in 2001 at a capacity of 1,800, it replaced an old double with a capacity of 800. So at the
Mhm.
time, we thought this is huge. We're adding 1,000 people per hour up there, and we realized we needed to do more than that. So it one, I think people really enjoy it. It's a very nice, very comfortable lift. I think Lightner Poma did a fantastic install on it. And it's only like 4 minutes now.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So, you know, the Lenawee triple, even though that serves uh, blue and black terrain, there was some kind of lower level blue skiers there.
Mhm.
And loading a triple's kind of hard for people that are still learning to ski. So, way fewer stops and slows.
Mhm.
And it's a quick load. The maze might look full, but it cleans out in just a few minutes. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So we couldn't be happier. We couldn't be happier with it.
So that triple lives on at Sunlight. It's been sitting in their boneyard for a couple of years. That's right down the road. It's off of I-70. As you exit to go to Aspen, you can turn off to Sunlight. That's an independent operation. It's not on the Epic or Ikon Pass. But they are this summer replacing their 1973 Segundo riblet double with this triple chair. And they're also their Primo lift they're replacing with a brand new fixed grip quad. We've seen a lot of lifts come out, a couple hundred in the past couple of years, and we've seen a lot of them get scrapped. And a lot of independent operators I talk to are very frustrated by that because they need lifts. They can't afford a new lift, but they could probably afford a used lift. Why was it important to you that lift did get a second life? And did you care where it went? Was there something in particular about Sunlight and its indie status that appealed to you? Just talk us through that if you could.
Sure, sure. For one, the lift was in fantastic shape.
Yeah.
I think still very much a modern lift. Uh, Only 20 years old. It was a great lift, and we wanted to sell it. Now, we've had other lifts that, were like 40, 45 years old that we thought were at the end of their life cycle, that we
Mm-hmm.
weren't comfortable selling, that it was like, this has been a great
Yeah.
lift. I know somebody would want it, but we think it's better to sell the chairs as souvenirs. Sell the parts, give the parts away, recycle. We recycle or sell almost all of it. But, we were just hoping um, that it would go to some place that could really use it. I was really happy when it turned out Sunlight could use it. I thought that was great. There were a couple other resorts looking at it pretty hard, but because it was a great lift, we were selling it for real money. It wasn't like a 50-year-old lift
Yeah.
that really, a lot of those old lifts, resorts are buying those old lifts for almost nothing. The cost is taking it out, moving it,
Mm-hmm.
reinstalling it. So,
Right.
we just lined up with Sunlight, right place, right time,
Yeah.
and really, really glad they got it.
Yeah, I'm glad to see them getting upgraded lift fleets, and I'm glad to see most of the independent ski areas in Colorado doing really well. One of the last things I want to ask you about, this did not make headlines, but it certainly could have, given the situation that unfolded in Park City, is that your ski patrol voted to unionize. So curious about your relationship with your ski patrol, what you can tell us behind that unionization drive, and whether that changed anything as far as the dynamic of you working with them.
Yeah. Well, it's a new time, so we got to, and there's a whole new set of rules when you have union involvement, especially when you have, they're part of a bigger group, CWA, Communication Workers of America. Um, we there's a lot of talk going on about unions. Several ski patrol unions have organized over the last 2, 3 years. Um, we still think we're better off talking directly to the staff. But for a variety of reasons, the group felt, they voted 30 to 20 to 22, that they would be better served having someone represent them. So, we respect that. It's new territory for them, new territory for us. The vote happened back in January. The next step is for the union group to come forward to us and with what they're interested in working on, and both groups will get together and we'll negotiate, and we're gonna learn a lot. And we're trying our best to operate as normal that way. It's new ground, new set of rules. So, I would imagine over the next few months, maybe next fall, I don't know when, but we'll get going on negotiating, and that's new for me. Never had to work through that before.
What does your patrol look like? You said 30 to 22, so that's 52 patrollers. That's your pro patrol, I'm assuming, and I'm not sure if everyone voted, but do you have any volunteers at A-Basin? I mean, given the severity of the terrain is just not a place where volunteers would work. Talk to me about what the patrol looks like overall.
Yeah. So our entire patrol are paid patrollers. We do have a volunteer paramedic program where we schedule 1 or 2 paramedics a day. Most of those people are most of them are firefighters or ambulance workers, either in Summit County or from the Front Range. But really, the patrol is a paid group, a variety of levels of experience, from relatively new at it to some people that have been at it a long time.
All right, I know another big part of your identity is this environmental stewardship and responsibility. And so I'll let you walk off on this today. Tell us about your reaching your target of 100% renewable energy at A-Basin.
Yeah. Well, it's sustainability is part of everything that we do. It's part of our ethos. Everybody here wants to take care of the place. They want it to look better next year than it did the year before, and we always want to be doing better. And we've got a couple of great staff members that are our sustainability team, and they create all kinds of wonderful things for us. And we've really been working on energy, and I think that's the biggest thing that we do. And we're now 100% renewable energy on our electricity. That's substantially due to our energy provider, Xcel Energy. And we work with them to partner with the right kind of power plants and the right kind of programs. And we're helping drive demand for Xcel to convert more and more of their electricity to renewable sources. Xcel's one of the leading energy providers in the country, and we're helping do that. We'll say, hey, we'll pay a little bit more if you can get us our energy from wind or solar or some other source. We have a little bit of on-site solar ourselves. We have a few other partnerships with organizations that help us do stuff. And with reliable sources, we offset some of our other on-site consumption, diesel and propane and gasoline, with a variety of other programs. But it's a really cool deal. We worked with a environmental consultant to make sure we were doing this the right way. And it's just really, really cool. It's something we've been working on for a long, long time. So we feel good about it.
Seems like you've been working on a lot of things. There's always so much going on at A-Basin, Al. It's amazing. Look, I can't thank you enough for your time. We're going to have to do this again in another couple of years whenever you start announcing these new lifts. So thanks so much for your time today. Congratulations on getting that sale done and getting through that, and on another great winter. And thanks again for hosting me. It was awesome.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Stuart. Again, I want to thank you. I love listening to the posts, and anytime I get the alert that there's a new one, that's why I always spend my mornings driving back and forth to work listening to your podcast. So,
oh God, I got to catch up. I have like 6 or 7 in the can right now. I've been a little slower since we transitioned to video, but we're trying to speed up that pipeline. So thanks for rolling with the video, Al. I'm sure folks will enjoy watching this. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
All right, man.
All right, that's Alan Henceroth, President and Chief Operating Officer of Arapahoe Basin, Colorado. Awesome job, Al. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, you killed it once again. One of the best right there, and he has A-Basin buttoned up and ready to roll. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you all so much for listening. I have a ton more pods in the can, ton more in the pipeline. You will hear from the leaders of Sugarloaf, Maine, Blue Mountain, Ontario, Killington, Vermont, Taos, New Mexico, Waterville Valley, New Hampshire, and many, many more through 2025. You will want to subscribe to the Storm Skiing newsletter at stormskiing.com to get those podcasts the moment they are live. You can also follow the Storm on X, Instagram, and YouTube at Storm Ski Journal. Until next time, stay well, stay safe. I'm Stuart Winchester, and I'll talk to you again very soon.
The Storm Skiing Podcast is a Quicksilver Films production.